Dr. Mariângela.
Thank you, Michael. And thank you for the World Federation for the invite. And also you forgot, you don't know, but Sheila and I are old friends too. So it's, right, Sheila? So we share a part of our lives together, right? The HIV life. So it's very timely that we're having this conversation, and I'm happy to update on some of the latest discussions globally and the actions that have been taken. Because this pandemic, obviously, you see the data, this is from last week, has already changed, but some things have not changed, right? It's an unprecedented. It's probably the public health crisis of our time, but it's going much beyond the public health problem, right? It's creating the Secretary General last weekend mentioned that it's going to cause a severe depression that will affect years to come because of the social economic impact. And going to the vaccines here, this slide is on the right-hand side, you see that we are talking about products that usually take 7-10 years to be developed, and that we have the probability of success go from 7% of the candidates in the preclinical stage to 17% of the candidates in clinical stage. So this is the scenario we are talking about, right? This is what, but this crisis also brought a lot of, I think, some of the concerns that both Dr. Sainz and my friend Sheila raised before. I think it's also brought an unprecedented spirit of collaboration, and that's not. We're seeing things that I have 40 years of public health. I'm seeing things that I have never seen before, in terms of sharing knowledge, research. Information about research, a much more collaborative spirit, even among industry. You have collaborations that we never thought before, because the industry usually set on the secrecy of, in going for patent processes and protecting every aspect of the process to produce a certain health product. And now we see a situation where you have big pharma connecting with the developing countries, manufacturers, network producers, and with academia, and in the world's upside down, in a good sense, in this side. Right? We also had a change because it's not anymore about low-income countries and lower middle-income countries and upper middle and rich countries. Now it's about those countries who produce or don't produce. You may be a high-income country with a small market, and you're very concerned you won't have access to a vaccine when it comes. So WHO, together with some heads of state in mid-April, has launched the Access to COVID Tools Accelerators. And this is the setup that we have right now. We have 4 pillars: vaccines, therapeutics, diagnostics, and health systems connector. And WHO acts as the coordination and support across all the pillars. So in the vaccines, we have on the lead CEPI and Gavi. CEPI, this is the emergency preparedness for vaccines. Wellcome, Trust, and Unitate on the therapeutics. The Global Fund and FIND, which is an NGO that works with diagnostics. In the health systems connector is the Global Fund and the World Bank. And WHO is coordinating the hub, and also different work streams across the pillars. And why is this? Because we are understanding that unless we have this kind of commitment right now, like I'm saying, I have not seen it even in the early HIV times, especially with such an effort to bring a collaborative spirit and bring it to push from the research and development of effective and safe COVID products to the deployment at country level, and as a cross-cutting issue, equitable access and a fair allocation of these products, right? So this is the Act A, and I'm happy to share other information later on. Please just get in touch with me. That would be perfectly okay. And also, say I just finished actually half an hour ago, the third or fourth member state briefing on the evolving proposal for a vaccine, the allocation framework initially for vaccines, and now in August we're going to present it for therapeutics. So why we are calling the vaccine platform, the vaccine pillar, like a COVAX. It's a collaborative platform, because I think this is also different from previous pandemics, Dr. Science, in the sense that now it's clear, the moment we live now, that no one is safe unless everyone is safe, right? So there are different in paradigm on how the world has to see the solidarity in the work and even the access to especially to vaccines, right? When I say it's also an unprecedented, because we never had so many vaccine candidates at the same time, right? At such fast speed. We already have 23. You see, we are entering the 8th month of this, the genomic for this virus, sequence for this virus being known. And we already have 23 vaccines in phase 1, 2, or 3 clinical trials. So this is really, really unprecedented. We also have the issue that there's a high risk of failure in vaccine development. So it's good that we have many products being developed at the same time. And then we do have issues, these slides can be made available. You know, you see on the right-hand side, they are just examples. It's not an exhaustive list, but we have different vaccine technologies under development. Some of them are new technologies. So we have some more established pathways that we know a lot about them because we've been doing forever, like the inactivated virus, for example. And we have very new platforms that had never been tried for vaccines in clinical trials, right? So we have a protein-based, we have nucleic acid, the RNA, DNA, the messenger RNA, and these are the examples. We have the viral vector where you have attenuated virus to carry DNA. You have, for example, been used in a adenovirus platform to deliver. We have never seen that before, right? And we have the usual, the old ones, which are the chemically killed virus or subunits of virus that are grown under controlled conditions. Here we have the two examples of the Chinese, but there are many more. So we have all these platforms being developed at the same time, which means we may have different vaccines, hopefully. You know, with these 200 candidates, you have these 23 that are more advanced in the clinical trials. Doesn't mean they will succeed, right? There's a lot of hype right now on this vaccine, on that vaccine, and they had 1,000 patients already tested, 42 patients here and there, but they are all yet, they have not gone through the entire process. So we need to keep watch on all the candidates right now because we don't know yet which will be the successful candidate and what will be the immunogenicity. Is this vaccine going to need 2 doses or 1 dose? Is it going to work for elderly patients or not? You know, there's so many uncertainties still in the process, but we do have some certainties that we need to build manufacturing capacity now, because whoever manages to develop a safe and efficacious vaccine won't be able to scale up, ramp up capacity as needed. And we are aiming with the vaccine, the COVAX pillar, we are aiming to deliver 2 billion doses by the end of 2021, which is an extremely ambitious target, right? But this means that we need to mobilize the capacity across the continents, right? And that's where I mentioned already that as part of this ACT Accelerator, we not only have the International Federation of Manufacturer Associations, which is big pharma, but we also have the Developing Countries Vaccine Manufacturers Network That includes, for example, several of the producers in Latin America, right? So this is very much because the vaccine will be, the adjuvant will be produced somewhere and fill and finish most likely somewhere else in order for us to scale up rapidly. The situation is also unique from a regulatory perspective and safety and monitoring perspective. Why? Because we need global regulatory alignment at high speed right now. Right, so we are working with regulators, especially what we call the stringent authorities, FDA and EMA, on several topics, in specific products development already. Because once this clinical trials end, we need not only to get a license quickly, right, but we need to make sure that there is there's safety and monitoring capacity. At least in sentinel countries, to be able to scale up in a secure manner. So we are working on this both. When I say we are, it's WHO mainly, but also working with the partners, with the regulators, and also with the advisory committees and the safety. WHO does have expert advisory groups on safety. So the three messages here: there is a huge load of research and development happening, not only with vaccines, but with therapeutics as well. There are like 1,700 ongoing clinical trials with therapeutics as we speak, in around 200 vaccine trials. So there is a lot of stuff in the pipeline. But then the fact is that if we do have a product, we need to have a product that we need to ensure there's equitable access and there's a fair allocation to whatever product, be them therapeutics or a vaccine, right? And this is a summary of the allocation framework and allocation mechanism that WHO is developing together with member states. And we went, like I said, through the third round today. And this is very much connected to the first effect that there will be scarce production next year, right? We won't have anything on the market before the end of the year, most likely mid next year, and there will be a scarce production. We have learned from the previous experience from the pandemic preparedness, influenza pandemic preparedness, from the H1N1, where we had a clear situation in 2009 when high-income countries had access to vaccines, and by the time especially low-income countries, not so much the upper middle-income countries, when they had access to the vaccines, the pandemic had gone. Right? So there's a huge effort to ensure that allocation happens on a timely fashion across all countries, right? So that's one, I think, some of the concerns that Dr. Sayans had raised. We are also working on 5 equitable access principles. One of them is transparency, the ethical values, the public based on public health needs, the flexible and speedy regulatory and procurement approaches, and also the collaboration, which the ACT accelerators actually is a collaborative platform. So what we are saying to this all countries approach, we have discussed so far, there are limitations because we don't know what type of product will be successful, right? We don't know the profile, we don't know how it's going to work. So tentatively, we are working with a public health goal to protect, to decrease mortality, and to protect the health system, which means equals to let's vaccinate health and social care workers first. Right? So the proposal is that we work through 2 phases on this allocation framework. The first phase would be up to 20% for the member states who have agreed to it. Up to 20% of their population, they would receive up to 20% of the population in the first phase. And this would mean that the recommendation would be that the first 3%, because you know how it is. Once you have a vaccine registering license, you have like 100,000, 200,000, 300,000 doses coming every month. It won't come to 2 billion at once, right? So we're saying, let's have an agreement that all countries will receive doses to cover 3% of the population, their population. And these are the highest bar of the high-income countries for health and social care workers. And up to 20% on high-risk adults, who are the people over 65 and people from 30 to 70 with comorbidities, right? This piece here, it's around 2 billion people. 1 and 2, it's around 2 billion people. We're calling this phase 1, right? Phase 2, with further production and with it could be extended to other priority groups depending on the situation, on the context, the threat in the country, and the vulnerability. Like you have vulnerable groups that need to be vaccinated as well. So this is all this is how it's being discussed with member states. We also will have a buffer set aside for emergency deployment based on immediate needs, and that means an outbreak somewhere, or issues with refugee populations, humanitarian situations, and so on. So, but how does this work in practice? Because you can have some things agreed upon by member states in paper, right? But we need the product, right? And for the product part, and I think this addresses part of the concerns that were raised before, we discussed with member states 3 options, right? You could have a national access mechanism where you buy, right? So you have the case of the single countries doing bilateral agreements. We have some rich countries doing that right now, and they are able to have 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, 5 bilateral agreements, maybe. Right? How do you know that this will be the vaccines that are successful at the end? You know, you're in phase 3 trial doesn't mean the safety and the efficacy will get you to the end, right? So if a single country alone can do not much. You know, you could have grouped access mechanisms, pool procurement, like the PAHO revolving fund and so on. And you could have a global access mechanism. And this is what we're calling the COVAX facility, which is to be hosted by Gavi, but it's not a Gavi traditional geographic income scope, right? Because it would continue to have countries who are funded by Gavi through the development assistance money, or they would be partner automatically, like as well as some small island states. So that's around 90 countries that would be part of this COVAX facility, receiving receiving the vaccines without having to disburse any money. And we issued a call for expression of interest for high-income countries and upper middle-income countries. The deadline was last week, the 14th of last week, 14th of July. And we had 77 countries who expressed interest on the COVAX, in joining the COVAX facility. So the COVAX facility is very much a pool kind of mechanism to invest in more candidates at once. And so countries would have access to they would make an advanced commitment in the case of the upper middle income countries. In the high income countries, Dr. Sainz, for example, PAHO came in with 35 countries. The revolving fund joined in with 35 countries joined on the COVAX facility already. expressed interest. Now there is time for the countries to sign the contracts and to make sure that here's the map, right? 76. That's from but it was 77 at the end, right? And the countries that receive that would benefit because they would be part of the advanced market commitments. The facility would cater for these 90 countries anyway. So this is the setup that we have. WHO, Gavi, and CEPI are working super closely together almost on a daily basis to ensure that we do have agreement by member states of what would be this initial global public health goals, an agreement on this, and an agreement on an initial allocation of 3 and up to 20% on phase 1 when there are scarce resources. And a pooling of interest on a global facility so countries don't have to fight on their own. It's not like you're gonna fight for the market. No, you are coming into a mechanism that will facilitate that you receive the doses that were allocated to you. So this is the stage we're in right now. Last week, Thursday and Friday, the Gavi, WHO, and CEPI hosted the first discussion, a consultation with the self-financing countries. And yesterday and the day before yesterday, the first consultation with the right-hand side, the countries that would receive the vaccines through the Gavi mechanism. Okay. Is this all good? Are we on the clear? Is this gonna work? My boss, Dr. Tedros, says that we have a cautious optimism. We are putting all our efforts to make sure that there are mechanisms in place that once a vaccine is proven to be safe and effective and it's licensed and then will be pre-qualified by WHO, that there is a framework that will ensure that countries can have an equitable access and not repeat the problems that we had in the past with the high-income countries getting it before other countries. Does this, for example, one problem, and I think someone will raise this on the chat, is of course that there are bilateral deals being negotiated between countries, but there are countries who are doing the bilateral deals and have joined the facility as well. So there's a lot of negotiations ongoing to make sure that we come out of this pandemic with a better world, with more solidarity, with maybe with different market rules as it regards to any effective and safe COVID product is a global public health good. Thank you. I'll stop here.